Thank you, everybody. And Kent and I met over at Kabam, but he's been up to some new things lately, and I have him tell you all about
it. Thanks, Dean. Hi, everyone. So the last 12 months have been a crazy ride. We went an unorthodox way in selling Kabam, where we ended up orchestrating 3 different sales, one to a company in China, the largest part of Kabam to Netmarble, and then a spin-out of Kabam called Aftershock to 20th Century Fox. And we were planning to take a nice break, and instead we dove right into the world of eSports, and we secured the rights to the Overwatch League franchise with Seoul Dynasty. We acquired the World Championship League of Legends team, Samsung Galaxy, that won the World Championship in Beijing last year. We acquired the Championship Heroes of the Storm team, and then we started 2 PUBG teams. So it's been a wild, crazy 12 months.
Yeah. So let's start at that high level about your view of the growth of esports and the audience and the revenues.
Sure. So what got us excited about esports was the rapid growth that we're seeing in esports. On the revenue side, we all see the Newzoo reports. Revenue for this year is anticipated to be about $900 million, growing about 38% year over year, and then growing in the next couple of years to somewhere between 1.4 to 2.4 billion. So rapid double-digit growth year over year. But what's more interesting is what we're seeing on the viewership side. So on the fan side, currently they're estimated, once again by Newzoo, about 380 million fans, growing to about 550. That is, if you look at it compared to other traditional sports, it is much larger than most of kind of the longer tail, mid to longer tail sports out there, and growing and kind of pushing onto kind of more of the traditional sports. And what we found to be most exciting was this kind of one stat that we saw, right? In traditional sports, they monetize their fans, right? So we're in the world of monetization in this that we talk about here. An average fan spends about $50, right? Or you monetize them at $50, whether it's sponsorship, merchandise, events, et cetera, et cetera. Esports, it's $5, right? So you have this gap between 5 and 50, right? So it's we saw this as a 10x opportunity for us and everyone else coming into the space. You have this, growing industry, huge fan base, and this big gap. And if you could come in and kind of build a great experience, build a great fan base, that you can kind of move the needle, and it's we viewed it as a 10x opportunity.
So theoretically, I guess you and Kevin Chu made maybe $1 billion off of selling Kabam. So some other people too, I guess, right? But there's a lot of capital coming into esports, right? And I wonder if you could describe some of that, like.
Yeah, so there's a lot of money flowing into esports. I think Crunchbase put out a report in 2017. There was 34 deals for $150 million. That was an increase from the year before of 1,125%, right? So massive kind of, the waves have turned, right? We saw this in mobile gaming, VR, AR, so a lot of money going into esports. But I think that the VC numbers is just it's a fraction of the capital, right? Where you're seeing a lot of capital come in is from the traditional sports teams, right? So you hear the names like the Kraft family, the Cronkies, the Wilpons, all the NBA teams. This is not reported in the kind of $150 million of capital from the VCs, but it is tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that is being shifted into esports from the traditional sports teams, right? And they're building esports teams, they're acquiring esports teams, they're investing in it. And then in addition to the capital from the traditional sports teams, you have all the arenas, right? And this is another huge wave of capital that's coming in. Right? I don't know if anyone's familiar with the space. Multiple arenas in Las Vegas being built. Southern California, there's 2 big arenas being built right now. We hear this in China. there are arenas popping up everywhere, right? So there's a huge amount of capital going into the physical venue experience and the live experience within esports. So another kind of underreported but really exciting area within esports.
So where the capital comes in, you think that helps close that gap, the 10x opportunity?
Oh, I think absolutely. I think I think what you're going to start to see, especially when you have these traditional sports teams come in, it's a lot about providing a great, that fan experience, and whether that's the live experience, the merchandise, kind of all the different ancillary things that go along with being a fan. I think that you'll see that with the traditional sports teams really kind of laser focus on those areas.
So as a team owner, you invested in the Overwatch League and the Seoul franchise for that league. How did you make that decision to invest in the league and that city?
So the Overwatch League, I hope everyone's familiar with the different esports. If you're not, Overwatch is a game created by Blizzard. Great game, lots of fun. The Overwatch League, Blizzard really sought out to create kind of the gold standard for esports, and I can attest, being a team owner, that they have. My view is they are the #1 league by far within esports. They put together an amazing team, amazing infrastructure, and really kind of the highest level of professionalism from this commissioner, Nate Nanzer, all the way down. But the other thing that I really appreciate about the Overwatch League is it's a city-based franchise and it's global. So as a team owner, right, we have the Seoul franchise. So we have the whole kind of all of Seoul to build our fan base and to create a venue in that event where fans want to go to, and create kind of that loyalty, that city-based loyalty. And I think it's one key differentiation that Overwatch has done that is incredibly powerful, because it means whether it's us, or as I mentioned, the Kraft family, or the Kroenke family, or the Wilpon family, we make long-term investments. And so we're going to put a lot of capital into building the infrastructure, the fan base, and that connection between kind of our fans and the players. And that will go on for years and years and years. So I think that they've nailed it in terms of what they've done. And then the second part of your question, I think, was about Seoul. Why Seoul?
Yeah.
So Seoul is the kind of the birthplace of esports. We were able to see, get a little bit of a glimpse in that when we were at Kabam. We had an office in Korea, and then we ultimately sold Kabam to a major game company, Netmarble, in South Korea. But it was just amazing how much esports is part of the cultural DNA within Korea. Right? Starting from the PC bongs all the way to the competitive playing, like, it's natural for people on a Friday night to go to an esports event. Right? That's pretty friggin' cool, right? It's natural for people to follow their favorite players and watch them and want to look up to them and everything else that you see in fandom here. So when we were thinking about kind of cities to go after, one, it's an amazing city. Its population and kind of greater Seoul is about 25 million. But they also are home to some of the greatest professional esports players in the world and some of the most diehard fans that you'll ever see. I mean, we have fans of our Seoul Dynasty team that will fly to see a match in Los Angeles. They will, and they'll come bring gifts for our players. It's awesome. So that was kind of the thinking about Seoul.
So KSV has a number of other teams and games like PUBG as well. How do you make decisions to invest in these other games?
So when we look at other games, we look at, I think there's kind of 3 factors we look at. First, kind of the game itself. Is the game conducive to an esport, right? Is that game going to be kind of a game that's going to last, be played, and be competitive for years and years and years to come? I mean, we've seen that with CSGO, we've seen it with Dota, we've seen it with League of Legends. Is the game going to be here for a long period of time? Because as a team owner, you're making investment into that game. So that's the first thing that we would look at. The second is the infrastructure that they've created to play competitive tournaments and have leagues and everything else. And while you're seeing a lot of kind of newer games emerge, they don't have kind of the infrastructure set up yet. But we may make some bets even when there's not an infrastructure. Like we did with PUBG, just because kind of we heard rumors about some of the stuff that they were doing. So that's the second factor. Is there kind of an environment that we could get in and kind of build and make sure that our teams can compete? And then the last is, can you create a competitive world-class championship team, right? And it's great that we're in Korea because there are so many like friggin' awesome players in Korea, but not for every game, right? I mean, if you look at like CSGO, the best players in the world are Europe or South America. Like for us to compete, that would be really hard. But when it comes to League of Legends, when it comes to Overwatch, right, there are certain games like they're just such amazing players. So for us, it's also, can we as a team ownership group kind of bring together great players and build a competitive, a truly competitive team.
So what are some innovations you see coming in esports?
Oh, I think there's innovations like every dimension. I think you'll see kind of lots of innovations from new companies, from established companies. But the two that I'm most excited by, the first is on the streaming and broadcast. Right, so we've kind of heard the headline numbers of like the BAMTech deal with League of Legends and the Twitch deal with Overwatch. And it's these deals plus the broadcast, whether it's cable or kind of linear broadcast, you're going to see a lot of innovation, right? We've already started to see it with Twitch, where they're not only just doing kind of like following the player in kind of the first-person view, they're now doing kind of a tops-down, so you can see the strategy of the players. They're doing instant replays, so you can see, oh my God, that was like this amazing triple kill, and that was so awesome. And they're building a lot of shoulder content around it. And the whole idea here is, how do you take kind of this massively popular viewer base, which is, as I talked about, is like going to hit 550 million people. How do you double that, right? How do you have this hit 1 billion people? And the way you do that is kind of broadening the audience, so it's not just like the diehard fans, but you kind of start to incrementally increase it. And so I think you're going to see that innovation, and you've already started to see it with Twitch. With the Overwatch League, they've come out with some innovations, I think. This year, next year, we're going to see a lot more in terms of broadcast. And then the other one that I'm super excited by too is live events, right? So I told you, like, there's all this capital coming into venues and all these sports teams coming in. Well, they're putting a lot of money in there to make money, right? And these are teams that know how to throw events. They know how to like get fans into an arena and a stadium and have these like wow moments, these like awesome like experiences where you go to. And I think with all the teams that are kind of betting in this, whether you have the NBA team owners, the NFL owners, the MLB owners, eSports teams, all the teams throughout Asia, you're going to see real innovation in terms of like, what is the fan experience when they go to a live eSports event? Like, how do you build that community, that excitement, that thrill? And I think nailing that is going to also expand the audience, because it's going to create kind of like we saw in Korea, will create like a cultural experience that people could go to. So I'm very excited by that.
So where's it all going then? If you pull back up high and look at this industry from way up, what do you see?
If I pull up, I would see eSports in some period of time, whether it's 5 years or let's call it 10 years, bigger than Major League Baseball. It will be bigger in terms of attendance, viewership, and revenue. It is on that much of a rapid pace, whereas like the flip side, you see traditional sports, and I'm calling out Major League Baseball, on a decline, right? NFL kind of has its own issues that it's been dealing with, on a decline, right? You're seeing viewership in traditional sports declining, and viewership and engagement with esports with double-digit year-over-year growth, right? And so we're already at that inflection point where more millennials are watching esports than Major League Baseball. And soon, they're projected that by 2020, more millennials will watch esports than NBA basketball, right? So, like, this is a tectonic shift. Like, there are some people that realize this, but this is a major radical shift that is happening within the sports industry. And I think that's why you're seeing so much investment come in from the traditional sports owners.
Thank you very much.
All right.